We will not see the inside of that chapel until the white smoke pours into the sky, the signal that the cardinals have picked the next pope. Amy Kellogg with the news. She's live outside St. Peter's Basilica tonight. Hi, Amy.
Shep, well, we had that gray smoke, and I think that the scenes outside of St. Peter's Basilica with crowds in the rain, in the cold, waiting, eyes fixed on those screens that had the Sistine Chapel chimney upon it, waiting to see if there would be gray smoke or white smoke or no smoke. We did kind of figure we'd see gray smoke tonight after a day of incredible pageantry, Shep, with the cardinals first having a mass for the election of the pontiff in St. Peter's Basilica this morning, and then those very beautiful scenes of them making their way from the Pauline Chapel to the Sistine Chapel, where they will continue to cast votes until a pope is chosen. Of course, the speculation at this point continues, with Italian newspapers and the bookies still putting Angelo Scola, of Milan, the Archbishop of Milan, in the pole position. The Canadian Archbishop, and then a couple of Americans, Cardinal Dolan of New York and Sean O'Malley of Boston, being talked about as possibilities as well. We got out and about today talking to Catholics, many of them pilgrims here to witness this incredible event, and asked them what they were hoping to see happen in the Catholic Church under the next pontificate.
Any of the scandals that have come up that have been kind of brushed under the rug, I want somebody that's going to stand up and not be afraid, not be timid, just be very bold and say that this is how the church is. This is our tradition, this is what we're going to do, and make a change.
We have a little bit of inside information, Shep, from Cardinal Dolan this morning. He apparently packed some snacks to eat during this conclave. He said earlier that he hoped it goes very quickly, but I think he was a little bit traumatized by those stories of cardinals being locked in and only being given bread and water, thinking if this goes on, he's going to need little sustenance. Shep?
Well, if it goes very quickly, he's not the Pope. If it goes a little longer, well, anything can happen. Amy Kellogg at St. Peter's, thanks. Robert Moynihan is with us now, the founding editor of Inside the Vatican magazine, who's as plugged in around here and understanding of the system as anybody I've met. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shep.
There's such a big challenge ahead. There are many different ways to tackle any number of problems. Do you have a sense for how it is the reformers want to begin the process?
Shep, I was just thinking of what I could say to explain the situation. What we have is a massive oil tanker, and we've got 2 or 3 people trying to put their hands on the steering wheel. For 50 years, the church has been trying to become more modern. Joseph Ratzinger was a reformer. He wanted to bring about transparency. He wanted to bring about a kind of spiritual clarity in the church, and he wanted to clean things up. At the same time, it's a massive structure. It's got universities, religious orders, and it's got a bank. This structure requires organization, and it requires political diplomacy. The Catholic Church used to be the official state religion of many European states. It's been losing that status steadily for 2 centuries. That's why I refer to it as a massive oil tanker. We're going to get changes here, and we're watching one critical moment in that process. And the 2 men who are struggling most are Cardinal Sodano, who is the man who gave the introductory homily today, and he said, let's become a serious and stable government, but he really meant let's keep going from the insider's position. And the other man is completely silent, and he's out at Castel Gandolfo, about 15 miles from here. He's still alive, Pope Benedict XVI. What he said is, let's have clarity. I want to have it, but I don't have the strength to bring it. The cardinals are listening to these 2 men, and today they didn't make a decision. I think it's fascinating theater, but it's reality.
There's a certain... You ask people who are involved in the process or speak on behalf of the Vatican or otherwise, they will tell you there is no politicking here. Of course, that flies in the face of reality. There is, and there is jockeying for 2 different positions, how to go forward. Aside from which reformer is at the top of the list, and is it possible for that man to become Pope?
We right now are, as people have been saying, it's common wisdom. I'm not bringing up anything really new. There's 2 or 3 candidates that are trying to get a consensus, and it looks like we have the first sign, unless we have an election tomorrow, that we will perhaps have a little bit longer conclave. If one of those two candidates, the man that would be close to Pope Benedict is Angelo Scola of Milan. He is sort of in the Ratzingerian line. Then Scherer really would be, in a sense,
Of Sao Paulo.
Of Sao Paulo, Brazil, of German origin, who is a very nice and good man, but he's really, in a sense, the creature of Sodano. And he worked in the Curia. He was very close to Cardinal Ray. Cardinal Ray was the last one into the Sistine Chapel. He's almost 80 years old. He's the right-hand man of Cardinal Sodano. The two of them were running Vatican diplomacy at the end of the reign of John Paul II. Sodano was removed by Pope Benedict about 2 years into his pontificate, and he brought in Cardinal Bertone. And Sodano
Who's
never...
now the Secretary of State.
Yes. And Cardinal Sodano, in a sense, remains the representative of Vatican diplomacy and the representative of some very important ideas, that a structure can't be just run on prayers and just run on hopes and wishes, a kind of charismatic church. And even Pope Benedict understood this. A church requires planning, just as a university does, or a television network. So Sodano has a point. But the problem is, when you focus too much on the institution and you lose sight of the spirituality, you can be in danger.
Their problems are very big. Now, from all that we've been able to learn, they have cardinals who are subject to blackmail, who are vulnerable to blackmail. There's scandals within the bank scandal. There is a sexual abuse of children scandal that seems to still be bubbling, that has been covered up for decades. It goes on and on. Are these reformers of the mind to come in and say, here's what we have done, here's how we're going to fix this so that we can move on? Or are we going to remain in this sort of slow, inside the Vatican, inside the government, slog through that's so difficult for everyone involved, Catholics and non-Catholics?
Yeah, well, your questions are the right questions. I do think no one expects an overnight reform, and I don't think the idea of a man coming in 100 days changing things. I think we would expect a process of 5 or 6 years. But the question is, which man will do that? Now, people are looking, I think, beyond these first two candidates now. And I expect that even the possibility of an American is being weighed, but I really think there could be an unexpected candidate. It was interesting that the cardinal from Nigeria came up yesterday in the papers. I don't know how anyone got that information, but he was actually in the meeting of cardinals, apparently speaking out that Jesus didn't have a bank. The church maybe doesn't even need a bank. In other words, it was an evangelical type of appeal from a very powerful African cardinal.
And some applause in the building as he said it.
There was applause in the building as he said that. That gives you an indication. We don't actually know, but we have hints that something is bubbling there, and I'm fascinated to watch it, and I'm hoping that something very surprising comes out of all this.
Well, it's so much fun to watch it and to realize we're all a part of history. Sir, it's so good of you. Thank you. I look forward to working with you for as long as this goes on.
Thank you, Shep.
All right.